Dear students, this session is for class 12th biology students based on chapter human reproduction. The topic will be covered in 4 sessions. Our focus will be on the basic structure and function of the human reproductive system in this session. Let me first tell you the learning objectives. After these sessions, the students will be able to draw the label diagram of male and female reproductive system, describe the male and female reproductive system, and will be able to differentiate between structure and function of various parts of male and female reproductive system. Startingly, let's have what reproductive system means. Reproduction actually is the production of young ones by an organisms. Humans are sexually reproducing organisms. They are viviparous in nature. That means they give birth to young ones. Let's first start with the male reproductive system. The male reproductive system has 4 main parts located in the pelvis region of the body. The first is testis, second accessory ducts, the third are the glands, and the fourth are the external genitalia. When we move on to the details of the male reproductive system, we have first the primary sex organs, that is the testis. That is the testis here. The primary sex organs, testes, they produce sperms. So, any organ that is concerned with production of gametes will be called as primary. Male reproductive system. Primary sex organs, they are testes. They produce sperms and testosterone. Testes are formed within the abdominal cavity here. Generally, testes descend down into the scrotal sac by 6th month of pregnancy through the inguinal canal. The low temperature that is outside in the scrotum, which is nearly 2 to 2.5 degrees less than the body temperature, this low temperature helps testes to produce the sperms. Each testis is oval in shape with length 4 to 5 centimeters and width 2 to 3 centimeters. Each testis has 250 compartments called as testicular lobules. Each lobule within the testis contains 1 to 3 coiled seminiferous tubules. Now, what the seminiferous tubules are? Seminiferous tubules are lined internally with spermatogonia, which are diploid cells. They undergo meiosis to form spermatozoa. Sertoli cells give shape and nourishment to the cells during different stages of spermatogenesis. The regions outside the seminiferous tubules, they contain interstitial spaces with cells and blood vessels. The cells laid eggs, they along with the immunologically competent cells, Leydig cells secrete testicular hormones called androgens. Now, let us focus on to accessory ducts. As you know, there is a need to transport the products of testis and the glands to the required organ. Testes are present here and it is the secretions are required somewhere else. All the tubes that are required for the transport of the products for testis and the glands, these tubes constitute accessory ducts. There are 4 accessory ducts. Retitestis include a network of tubes inside the testis. Its function is to receive spermatozoa from the seminiferous tubule and pass it on to vasa efferentia. The second one is vasa efferentia. Its function is to receive the sperms and open up into epididymis, which is present on the posterior surface of the testis. Epididymis, it is large convoluted tube on the posterior surface of testis. It opens up into vas deferens. Now, vas deferens, this duct ascends up into the abdominal cavity, loops over the urethra, and then joins the duct from the seminal glands here, and opens up into ejaculatory duct. The function of these ducts, the retitestis, the epididymis, the vasa deferens, the function is to transport the sperms from the testis to the required organ. Now the last is the urethra. Urethra is a thin muscular tube. It originates from the urinary bladder and passes through the penis to the external in the opening called as urethral meatus. Now we shift on to accessory glands. They consist of a prostate gland, seminal vesicles, and two small bulbourethral or Cowper's gland. The collective secretion of these three glands, we call it as seminal plasma. It is rich in fructose, calcium, and certain enzymes. The secretions of bulbourethral or Cowper's gland is lubricating in nature. Now the seminal plasma that we call is sperms plus the seminal fluid that we see here. Now we move on to the external genitalia, which is the penis. Penis is a copulatory organ made up of muscular, erectile and spongy tissue. It is richly supplied with the blood. When spongy tissue is filled with blood, the penile muscle tissues become erect. This facilitates insemination. Now the enlarged tip of the penis is called as glans penis. It is covered by a loose skin called as foreskin prepuce. Now let us shift over to the female reproductive system. Female reproductive system is specialized to support the process of gametogenesis, ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth and childcare. The parts of the female reproductive system are a pair of ovaries, a pair of oviduct, the uterus, the cervix, the vagina, and then the external genitalia, and also the mammary glands. Now let us focus on to first the ovaries part. Ovaries are the primary sex organs in the females. They produce the female gamete called ovum. They also produce steroid hormones, the female sex hormone, ovarian hormones. Each ovary is 2 to 4 centimeters in length and connected to the pelvic cavity by membranes, ligaments. Each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium enclosing the stroma. Ovarian stroma inside the ovary, it is the matrix of the ovary and it is divided into two zones. The outer one will be peripheral in the cortex, which is peripheral in position, and the medulla, which is inner in position. Now a pair of oviducts. Let us see the oviducts, the fallopian tube. Each oviduct is nearly 10 to 12 centimeters long. It extends from the periphery of the ovary and joins to the uterus. Its parts are the initial infundibulum. It is funnel shape and it is close to the ovary. The fimbriae, they are finger-like projections at the edge of the infundibulum. They aid in collecting the ovum from the ovary during ovulation. Then comes the ampulla. The ampulla is the wider part of the oviduct after the infundibulum. Next part is the isthmus. The isthmus is the last part of the oviduct. It is narrow and it joins the uterus. Now we come on to the big structure, the uterus. It's also called as the womb. It is shaped like an inverted pear that you can see here. It is placed in the pelvic cavity by the ligaments. It is attached to the pelvic wall by the ligaments. The uterus is the part where the embryo develops into the fetus. The uterus opens out into vagina through a narrow structure called as cervix. The uterine wall has 3 layers. It is outer perimetrium, the middle myometrium, and the inner endometrium. The perimetrium, which is the thin membranous external layer, the myometrium is the middle one. It is thick. It is layer made up of muscles, smooth muscles. This is the myometrium which exerts strong forces, strong contraction during the delivery of the baby. The endometrium, it is the inner glandular layer that lines the uterine cavity. This facilitates implantation. It undergoes periodic changes during menstrual cycle. Now we move on to cervix. Cervix is a narrow canal connecting the uterus with the vagina. Cervical canal is the cavity in the cervix. Now we move on to the last part, that is the birth canal. The birth canal is the part of the cervix and the vagina together form the birth canal. That means they will facilitate the birth of the baby. Let us now go to the female external genital organs. They consist of mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, the hymen and the clitoris. Let's go to them one by one. The mons pubis is a mass of fatty tissue covered by the skin and the hair. The labias, the labia majora, that's a fleshy fold of tissue that extends from the mons pubis and covers the vaginal orifice. Labia minora, they are paired folds of tissue under the labia majora. The hymen, it is a membrane that partially covers the opening of vagina. It is often torn during sexual intercourse. It can also be broken by active participation in sports like horse riding, cycling, or a sudden fall or jolt, and even the hygienic practices, the vaginal tampons, it can be broken down. In some women, the hymen can even persist after the first sexual intercourse. The presence or absence of hymen is not a reliable indication of virginity or sexual experience. The next part is clitoris. Clitoris is the tiny finger-like sensitive projection that lies at the junction of labia minora and above the urethral orifice. We move on to the next part, that is the mammary glands. The mammary glands are paired glands. The presence of functional mammary gland is a characteristic feature of all the female mammals. Each gland consists of glandular tissue and the fatty tissue. The glandular tissue consists of 15 to 20 mammary lobules. Each lobe has a cluster of sections called as alveoli. The cells of the alveoli secrete milk. The milk that is secreted by the alveoli is stored in the lumen or the cavity of the alveoli. All the alveoli open into ducts called as mammary ducts. The tubules of each lobe join to form mammary duct. Several mammary ducts, they join to form a wider ampulla. The ampulla is connected to the lacticiferous ducts through which the milk is sucked out. Let us now recapitulate why testes and ovary are called as primary sex organs. What can happen if testes do not descend into the scrotum? Question number 3. Role of seminiferous tubules. Question number 4. Elaborate accessory ducts, accessory glands involved. Number 5. Role of fimbriae in the oviduct. Question number 6. What is the link of hymen with the virginity? Is it a misnomer? So students, in this session, we have focused on the structure of the reproductive system, human reproductive system. So I hope you have enjoyed and understood each and every aspect of the topic covered here. In the next session, we will meet again with the topic gametogenesis under the same chapter, human reproduction. Thank you.